I always want the cat that everybody's copying. I don't want the copycat. And everybody's a copycat. And Jonathan Gannon, everybody, Johnny Mac defends Jonathan Gannon. I'm going to look at you, Jody Mac, right now. I hate this scheme. But I hate this scheme because the Eagles don't have Khalil Mack.
Right.
They don't have Akeem Hicks in his prime. That's why I hate this scheme.
And a good Monday morning, Birds fans. Usually at this time, we're picking apart an Eagles win or an Eagles loss. Not the case this week. We've got hours yet to wait. And Johnny Mac, you've got so many hours left to wait. 8:35 kickoff tonight, somewhere thereabouts.
Yeah, man.
What are you going to do today? You going to go out and buy a car or something? You got all this time to kill before the Eagles play.
Yeah, it's a long day, Jody. Might be 24 hours, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's if you're staggering a Monday night game, here's my complaint. Why not do it East Coast, West Coast, and have the Eagles start?
This? Because that's what they've done in years gone by. They played 2 Monday night games. Usually the first week of the season. Why they're doing it week 2, I have no idea. And yeah, they're going to be the second half of the first game is going to be on during the first half of the Eagles game. Yeah, it makes no sense whatsoever.
No, it's an awful decision. Obviously nobody cares that we got to be up so late. But hey, think of it from a fan perspective, and then they got to go to work tomorrow, a large portion. So I mean, nobody wants to be up that late. Come on, NFL. This doesn't make any sense at all.
It doesn't. And somehow Johnny Mac will get over and through it and be here with me tomorrow morning, 24 hours from now here on Birds 365. And we'll find out, are we talking about an Eagle win or an Eagle loss? Eagles are a slight favorite at home against the Vikings, who are very impressive week 1, handling the Green Bay Packers. That was added to last night with the Packers easily handling the Bears. No one should really be surprised by that because Aaron Rodgers is well on record noting that he owns Chicago, and he did again last night. But the Vikings did look good in their opening win. The Eagles look good offensively in their win in Detroit, but that also got a little bit of a boost yesterday with the Lions putting up another
those Lions.
Another 36 spot, 35 followed by 36. Where the hell is all this Detroit offense coming from?
Yeah, and DeAndre Swift, he hit the over. I said take the under on DeAndre Swift, averaging 9.6 yards per carry. Actually, I said it about Dalvin Cook. Take the under. Who's a better player than DeAndre Swift, but things tend to even out. Now, he only carried it, I think, 5 or 6 times yesterday.
But one
over 11 yards a carry. Over 11 yards a carry. So maybe the Eagles aren't that bad defensively.
Yeah,
maybe.
We'll see how it plays itself out tonight. All right, so we got the Vikings and the Eagles kicking off hours from now. A secondary start after an earlier Monday night start. Again, we don't understand it, but it is game number 2. And yeah, all of a sudden, game number 2 gets a little bit more added importance to it because all the things that happened in the National Football League last week, in addition to the Eagles' 38-35 win in Detroit, the 49ers found a way to lose in the slop in Chicago. Came back and won. Oh, I want to ask you about Jimmy G at some point. We won't.
Better to be lucky than good. Better to be lucky than good. San Francisco.
Yeah, but the guy who they've desperately tried to replace is now they got to hang all their hopes on him.
That's what I said. It's better to be lucky than good. Injuries happen. How did Trey get hurt? By the way, I didn't see it. Did you see it?
Turned ankle.
No, I know he broke his ankle, but. Was he in the pocket, out of the pocket?
Oh, I don't remember. We'll have to look that up. But San Francisco comes back and win. Green Bay loses week 1. They come back and win. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have 2 touchdowns in 2 games. But you know what? Also, they have 2 of wins because their defense looks really good. The Rams let the Falcons back into that game after it opening up a huge lead against them, but they hung on and won. So all those teams that and the Dallas Cowboys had a lead, let it slip away, but then Maher kicks a 50-yarder, which, oh, by the way, John, I've looked at it like 5 times. Are we sure that field goal went inside the upright for the Cowboys?
Boy, I thought it was no good. When I saw it, I thought it was no good. When I saw it drifting, I said, "Oh no, he missed it." And all of a sudden, I see the officials go up. I mean, they were right there. It was
right.
I'm sure it was inside.
They can tell better than we can on TV, no matter how big our televisions, high def our televisions are. I'm not suggesting they missed it, but it was this close to not going in. So the Cowboys won as well. So all the teams that we thought would be the Eagles' competitors for the playoff spots all found a way to win yesterday. So the Eagles are going to have to continue to earn it. They earned it despite a lame defensive effort last week against the Lions. Defense got to be better this week because the Vikings are a better offensive team. I'm sorry. Even though the Lions put up 36 points again yesterday against the Commanders, the Vikings just have more offensive talent. Why should we have faith that Jonathan Gannon's defense will be better? I don't know if they are better. I don't know if it'll just be adjustment. I don't know if the guys individually step up and perform better and tackle better than they did last week. Why should we believe the Eagle defense will be better against the Vikings this week than it was against the Lions last week?
Well, I think it starts right there with your last point, Jody. If they miss 14 tackles again, I mean, they're in trouble. They're not going to look good if they miss 14 tackles again. So I think you get sort of a market correction there. Look at Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. This is a Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave and Jordan Davis game because the one weak spot on the Minnesota offense is the interior of their offensive line. So they got to play better. If they played like they did in Detroit, the Eagles are in trouble. I think they will play better. I think they'll correct themselves a little bit. Not Jordan. Jordan played well. Jordan's got to play a little bit more, obviously. So I think it starts there, just players playing better, as simple as that is. I think a lot of players just played poorly in Detroit, to be honest. And we can talk about preparation, all that kind of stuff. You know, extended preseason, the real preseason, whatever you want to call the first couple of weeks in the regular season. So that's number one. Number two, this Minnesota team is really bad against the run. They have been. I think it only gets worse in this new scheme they're running, which is the same scheme as the Eagles run and everybody else runs. I think it only gets worse. So if I'm the top-ranked rushing team in the NFL and I got the +1 in Jalen Hurts, I'm just going to run it down their throat and force them to stop it. And I don't know if they can stop it. So, you know, if I'm going to do one prop bet, Eagles over 200 rushing again against this team. And I think that's how they win the football game.
And if they do that and they find a way to win, I guess someone will find a way to complain about Jalen Hurts running the ball too much. But we'll have to see if that shakes itself out that way tonight. On the one more defensive question. You mentioned everybody now runs the Vic Fangio defense, a lot of zone. Do the Packers run the Fangio defense?
Yep.
Right. How'd that work out for them last week against Minnesota? Here would be my word of advice for Jonathan Gannon if he's listening to Birds 365. I would actually have someone cover Justin Jefferson. He's pretty good. He can catch the ball. He can make plays. He can turn it upfield. Because watching some of the game last week against the Green Bay Packers, he was just running unabated in the secondary. No one even in the same picture as him. How is Justin Jefferson, arguably one of the best 3 wide receivers, 2 wide receivers, number 1 wide receiver in the NFL? How is he out in the pattern and no one's in the same zip code as him? How can that possibly be?
You know, one of the things that frustrates fans the most is busted coverages. And when you play a lot of zone in anybody who plays the Fangio style of defense plays a lot of zone. That means, you know, you saw it. You're probably like a proud papa with Tua coming back and throwing for all the touchdowns and yards. You see the one touchdown to Tyreek Hill, you can say the same thing.
Where the hell?
Where are they? They're playing zone, Jody, and they bust the coverage. And
you know who
and the
busted
best
that
player
coverage?
on the field,
the guy who missed that one the most, the guy the Eagles wanted badly, Marcus Williams. He was the back of that coverage, and he was nowhere near Tyreek. How do you not know where Tyreek Hill is on that play,
it looked like the corner dropped him, in the
Yes.
coverage. It looked like the
He
corner thought
passed
he
him
was
along, and the safety's supposed to be there. The safety had to be on the other side of the field because he couldn't even get close to getting in the picture before Tyreek Hill caught the ball.
that's the problem. You never know. Is it cover 2? Is it quarters? Is it cover 6, cover 8? You don't know who's supposed, like, did the cornerback make a mistake by dropping the receiver? Did the safety make a mistake? You don't know. I mean, nobody knows. Nobody knows what the coverage was on the particular play. That's part of the issue. But same thing, people say, the fan's going to say, how do you leave Tyreek Hill, the best player on the field, just by himself? That's what happens when you play zone coverage. But, you go back, the reason everybody does this, you go back to early last year. This is a Patrick Mahomes rule. Remember when Patrick was struggling a little bit at the beginning of last season? Everybody was playing cover 2 on him. Everybody was forcing him to take the step underneath. Everybody was trying to prevent the big plays. And it took them a while to, you got to be disciplined.
Right.
For veteran quarterbacks, it's not that difficult, to be honest. And it's funny because I shouldn't do this, but I don't have an Eagles game. I need a Sunday game to cover because I get into it with fans. And, I can't stand the mentality of, the scheme stinks, the scheme stinks, the scheme stinks, the scheme stinks. And they're talking about other stuff. They're talking about personnel. They're talking about teaching. They're talking about blown coverages. They're talking about stuff. The scheme is great. And the scheme is super aggressive when you have Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks and players that can't block. Go back and watch that Chicago defense. That's where it all started and got Vic a head coaching job. Go back and watch that defense, and it looks tremendously aggressive. Why does it look aggressive? Because you couldn't block those two guys. Simple as that. They're playing the same coverages, but if you don't have those guys up front and you're rushing 4 that people can't block, you look like a dope. Here's my problem with the scheme, and I think people don't realize, I can't stand this scheme for that exact reason. Well, it's the same thing I say with Deebo Samuel. When we went through the offseason, I want Deebo Samuel. I want Deebo Samuel. No, you don't, because Kyle Shanahan isn't coming with him, and your dumb head coach isn't going to be able to take advantage of Deebo Samuel. They're going to try to turn him into Tyreek Hill. So I always want the cat that everybody's copying. I don't want the copycat. And everybody's a copycat. And Jonathan Gannon, everybody, Johnny Mac defends Jonathan Gannon. I'm going to look at you, Jody Mac, right now. I hate this scheme, but I hate this scheme because the Eagles don't have Khalil Mack,
right?
And don't have Akeem Hicks and his prime. That's why I hate this scheme.
So if you're smart enough to know this, why isn't Jonathan Gannon? Why aren't other defensive coordinators? This scheme can be great. Vic Fangio proved it can be great if you have star players in it. But if you don't have star players in it, do you just try and pound the square peg into the round hole?
I would say no.
Over and over and over again?
I would say no. But, everybody, 12 teams is what I counted. And that could be up. It's probably more that I know that use this scheme. 12 of 32 teams in the NFL use the same damn scheme. The 2 teams tonight use the same damn scheme. Now, Minnesota looked great against Aaron Rodgers in week 1 because they have Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith. Now, they're not quite what Mack and Hicks were in their prime, but they're really, really good players. Now, the Eagles have great tackles, so that's going to be probably the most interesting matchup of the night because you saw Aiden Hutchinson yesterday. Aiden Hutchinson couldn't get off a Lane Johnson block to save his life. In week 2, he's getting 3 sacks. So, the Eagles are well equipped to handle at least players of that ilk, and we'll see how it shakes out. Hassan Reddick, look, they paid him $15 million. He's the best pass rusher they've had in a long time. But he ain't Khalil Mack. He ain't Defensive Player of the Year Khalil Mack talent level. There's a big difference. There's a big drop-off. And nobody knows Akeem Hicks. I don't know why, because in his prime, he was just unblockable. Now he's had a lot of injuries. He's in Tampa Bay now. He still can't block him.
Oh, by the way, fitting in quite nicely with the
Yeah.
Buccaneers.
Well, you still can't block him. The problem is he's going to get hurt. He's only going to play 7-8 games. But when he's out there, you still can't block him. Fletcher Cox was like that early in his career. He's not like that now. Javon Hargrave isn't like that. So, yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't, I get the mentality of, and then you have this over evaluation of your own talent. Like I had some guys, well, the Eagles should play press coverage. First of all, I mean, if candy and butts, if candy and nuts were its and butts type of thing, you spend all time practicing.
Whoa,
Yeah,
whoa. Practicing?
well,
You sure?
I know you were going to
sure
go down.
about that?
I know you're going to go down that route, Jody. But in all seriousness, they do one thing of the whole off season, all summer. Scrap it after week one. Come on, use some common
now I
sense.
see where you're going. Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
Use some common sense.
Oh my God, we need to change our entire philosophy in our defense
in 1
on
week.
A dime.
Yeah, it's absurd. So, but then the other part of that is they don't have corners. They have one corner to play press coverage consistently that can do it, and that's Darius Slay. They have one. James Bradbury's a great zone corner. That's why he's here. They play a lot of zone. Avonte Maddox, he's okay. He's not a great press coverage player. But he could stand up. Yeah, but they only have one great press coverage.
Let me ask you this. If that's the case, if the Eagles are a team that you say don't have enough talent at the cornerback position to play press coverage, who does?
Nobody.
Then how do you express,
why do you think the whole league
do you express surprise that the entire league is playing the Fangio zone defense? If there aren't good enough corners in the league to play press, well, then of course everybody's going to play zone.
Well, and part of it is also the rules. I mean, they're hamstrung from a defensive standpoint. You're not allowed to touch guys, illegal touch. The more press you play, then you have all these quarterbacks. Like if you play press coverage against Jalen Hurts, your ass going to get beat. They're just going to turn their backs on Jalen Hurts, and he's going to run up their backs for 30 yards. So a lot of these mobile quarterbacks limit what you can do from a man coverage standpoint. If you don't play a lot of zone against Jalen Hurts, you're a dope. I mean, you're an absolute dope as a defensive. Same thing with Lamar Jackson. I mean, you have to play zone against those types of players. That factors into it. So a lot of things factor into it. But what also comes into play is when you have, and so many young corners, you saw it with Baltimore because they had some issues. You're going to have blown coverages all over the place. And you saw it, you mentioned Jefferson with Green Bay. All over the place early in the season. You're going to have blown coverage after blown coverage. You'll see it tonight. There's going to be blown coverages on both sides because both sides use zone. You're going to see Justin Jefferson running free, and Eagles fans are going to lose their mind. You're going to see A.J. Brown running free, and Vikings fans are going to lose their mind. It's so predictable, but it's where we are in the NFL.
All right, so I got to ask you this, Johnny Mac, and I see our buddy Special Eddie
Game Day Kratz
ready to roll. If the Eagles don't have the corners to play press coverage, and you hate the Vic Fangio defense that they're playing right now, and we readily acknowledge they couldn't change on a dime. But if you had all preseason to get ready, actual practice in preseason, novel idea. If you were advising Jonathan Gannon, what kind of secondary defense would you like to see the Eagles play?
Well, I would like to mix in more. I would like to be more multiple on the back end. Like they're multiple. That we're so multiple up front. Multiple. That's all they talk about. 4-man front, 5-man front, 30 front. They use all these different fronts. Why can't they use different stuff on the back end? It's just quarters, cover 2, some cover 8. It's all, they could be more varied. But that's where we are. It's a bigger problem. That's where we are in the modern NFL, Jody. I'd like to go back to where we were 20 years ago when the defense was allowed to do more things, but I can't do that. So
right, you got to play within the rules of 2022.
Yeah. But so the answer is I'm not the innovator. I'm not Big Fangio. But what I don't want is all the guys that get in line and follow the leader. I want a guy who has his own ideas and comes up with the next thing. What's the next thing? I don't know. It was once cover 2. It was once cover 3 with Seattle. It was once Mike Zimmer with the A gaps and all that crap. And now it's a Big Fangio. I want those guys. At least you have like 2 years of everybody trying to catch up.
All right, but whatever that next defense is, somebody's going to play it. Somebody's going to have success with it. And then by the following year, 14 teams are going to play.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's just the way it is.
That's what
and
I
that's
said.
not new.
2 years.
That's been going on in sports for 50 years, that somebody had success and everyone else will follow thereafter.
You're right,
but do it as well. They don't have the talent as much. But that's a concept that hadn't changed in a half a century.
But you have 2 years before everybody catches up. You have 2 years, and then, at least you're ahead of the curve. The Eagles pride themselves on being ahead of the curve. We're ahead of the curve. We went outside the margins. Well, go get coaches that are ahead of the curve.
You got a legit complaint there. All right, John McMullen, Jody McDonald. It's a game day. Yes, the Eagles have Monday Night Football action tonight down at the Link. Johnny Mack will be down there for about a day and a half, as will his partner in crime for Sports Illustrated, Ed Kratz, who's going to join us next here on Birds 365.